Uh, Good afternoon or good morning, depending on your time zone. My name is Jason Krause. I'm the editorial director with ACEDS. And I'd like to welcome everyone to today's presentation of our webinar introducing Thomson Reuters eDiscovery Point. Before we jump in, I'd just like to say a couple quick words about ACEDS for those of you who aren't familiar or are new to the organization. We are, of course, a membership association. We're committed to promoting eDiscovery skill and competence through training, education, networking, and we offer the Certified eDiscovery Specialist credential, which is held by more than 1,000 practitioners in the U.S. and globally. You can join today and start receiving a number of benefits exclusive to our members, including news content, members-only webcasts, our Bits and Bytes newsletter, our members directory, and special benefits from our affinity partners. With that, I'd like to introduce our two presenters today. On the line, we have James Jarvis, who is the Vice President of Product and Partner Management with Thomson Reuters, and Keith Schroet, who is the Marketing Manager of Legal Managed Solutions. Keith is going to give you sort of a high-level introduction to the product and service, and then James is going to jump in and give sort of a live, hands-on demonstration of the actual product, which I think we're all excited to see. Just want to, before we jump in, I'm going to turn it over to the guys, but before we jump in, I just want to let everyone know we do welcome your questions throughout the presentation, so we will be monitoring those questions. There is a question window. Someone just said the audio is not working. I hope that's not the case. Please, and we'll try to answer your questions throughout or at the end of the presentation. But with that, I'll turn it over to Keith.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it. Again, my name is Keith Schroet. I'm the Marketing Manager for Legal Managed Solutions. Just to get a little background about myself, I've been in the industry for a little bit over 10 years. For about 7 years, I've been a subject matter expert where I've been going out to trade shows, events, bar associations, and talking about eDiscovery from a content perspective in general. And then the last couple of years, I've ran the marketing group for a competitive product in the industry, and then been with Thomson Reuters for the last year, coming over to run the marketing department for eDiscovery Point. And with that, I'll pass over the mic to James Jarvis so he can give himself a quick introduction as well.
Thanks, Keith. Hello, everyone. My name is James Jarvis. I work at Thomson Reuters in the capacity that Jason mentioned, focused on product and partner management. We are very focused at the moment and excited to show you today the eDiscovery Point application. My background is in the law. I come from Australia where I was a solicitor before joining Thomson Reuters back in 1997, and I've been involved in the design and build of many applications and web-based solutions for Thomson Reuters, including Westlaw Next, where I led the design team to build that solution. But subject for today, eDiscovery Point, have been very focused on that for the last couple of years, and we're excited to show you the application today. Back to you, Keith.
Great, thanks, James. So what I wanted to do today is we're going to have a couple slides. The session is going to be recorded, and there will be a follow-up email that will give you some more information you can actually read after the fact. But from a slide perspective, what I wanted to do is just take a little bit of time to introduce the product and some of the value propositions, and then leave the bulk of the time for James to be able to go through eDiscovery Point and just give you a really good high-level demo of the solution, a lot of the value propositions that we offer. From a eDiscovery Point definition perspective, I went ahead and put up our formal definition here, and I think it answers a lot of the typical questions that we have. eDiscovery Point is a revolutionary new SaaS web-based eDiscovery software solution built from the ground up using modern web-based HTML5 architecture. eDiscovery Point puts users back into control over their time and cost with greater speed, accuracy, ease of use, simplified pricing, and allowing users to work from anywhere at any time on a Mac or PC. So that's just basically the elevator pitch to describe what eDiscovery Point is and what the offering is. The next slide, basically what I wanted to do is just talk about some of the product highlights. And James will talk about more of this in depth as he's going through and showing eDiscovery Point. But really, these are some of the value propositions that we're offering. You can see at the top, when we're designing the product and we talk about the product, we use these terms a lot: speed, reliability, accuracy, ease of use, security. So everything that we've done from a development standpoint really revolves around these statements. One of the first things I wanted to point out is that this is a SaaS model. So Thomson Reuters Data Center is very important to the discussion. In the follow-up email, you guys will be getting a brochure that talks pretty extensively about our data center. But all data is housed in our data center, and the data center is located in Eagan, Minnesota. It's one of the nicest, most robust data centers I've ever seen, especially from this industry perspective. There's about 110,000 square feet of IT white space. It's manned by about 500 IT personnel. It meets all the specifications, all the requirements, the redundancy requirements. So it's a very, very important value proposition that we have with the eDiscovery Point offering being a SaaS model. So you'll get a full brochure that talks about that. And if you have any questions, I'll give you my email at the end, and you can definitely send me some emails if you have questions about the data center. The second value proposition is really the secure aspect of the program. Since it is a hosted solution, we look at security as being one of the most important fundamental aspects of the program. Once you see the program and James actually go through the demonstration, you'll see that he logs in using the one-pass sign-in. So if you're used to using Westlaw or any other Thomson Reuters web-based services, you have to go through and log in through that one-pass. It does offer two-factor authentication. So security is really important in the program. And again, when I send you the additional information, it'll go over the one-pass sign-in procedure and talk a little bit more about the two-factor authentication. The other things I'll just touch on real briefly, the simple pricing model. You're only charged for data in review, and I have a couple slides because that's one of the very first questions that I get is, what does it cost? So I did put a couple slides here in a second. We'll talk about the pricing to an extent. Cutting edge technology, some of the things I wanted to point out is that it is HTML5 architecture. You can use a Mac or PC, so it's basically application agnostic from that standpoint. You don't have to log in or install any plugins. You don't have to install any supporting software. It basically just works on the supported browsers. And the supported browsers are Internet Explorer, Firefox, Safari, Edge, and Chrome. A lot of the applications in the industry, because the architecture only really allows you to use Internet Explorer, that's what they support. Our application is a little bit different because it's more open, and it does allow you to support these browsers. From a loading and processing perspective, one of the key values of the program is basically how we create these. When you're loading up the data, there's three ways to load the data. You can do a simple browser drag and drop, load up to 10 gigs of data. So if you're working late at night one night and you have a rolling production and you get information in the system pretty quickly, then the user can simply do a drag and drop. You can use an FTP, so up to a terabyte. You can do a direct FTP load. Or if you have larger data and it's on a hard drive or some kind of media like that, then you can ship the media to us and then we'll load it. So again, in the information I'll send out, it'll explain that a little bit better. The other thing that's unique about the loading and processing aspect of the program is the way that we packetize the data. So instead of loading all the data and having a traditional process where it'll go through and it'll load the data. After it's loaded, then it goes through and processes, which sometimes can take long periods of time. What we do is we create packet data. So we packetize the data into smaller chunks, and then we go through a 5-step process with that. So for an example is you'll upload the data, we create the packets, we start going through the processing aspect of it, and James will talk about this a little bit more as he shows it. But we go through and we virus scan the information, we do the HTML5 conversion, we create the search index, we do duplication. So everything's done at a smaller level, and it allows us to basically load and process data extremely fast. So we say that you can actually start reviewing data in minutes, because as that first packet goes through that process, then that data is going to be rendered in the system and you can start reviewing it. So really unique aspect from the loading and processing perspective. Data assessment, when we talk about pricing here in a second, you'll see that we have data assessment from an early case perspective, and you can do that at no charge. So as you're loading in and processing this data, the early data assessment tools gives you the capability to go through and look at the data, you can search it, you can filter it by different field information, by different criteria, and then you can see what information is important to the case, and then you can pass that information over to review, and that's actually where we start charging. So all that early data assessment technology is there for you to be able to quickly find out, research the case, figure out what you want to keep, cull down that information, and then pass over the information you want to for review, and then that's where the chargeable aspect comes in. Data assessment tools are available, like I said, early case assessment, or you can use all the data assessment tools in review as well. So really some really nice, powerful technology that James will be demonstrating here in a second. From an advanced search perspective, this is the same architecture or backend that you're using for Westlaw, if you're familiar with Westlaw. So what we're doing is we're guaranteeing the same type of search results. So we're using 3 seconds or less, which is typical for search results in Westlaw, regardless of the amount of data that you're loading into the cases. So it's the architecture and the back-end perspective and having the Thomson Reuters data center configured the way it is that gives you those quick search results. And James will talk a little bit about that as he goes through the searching within the technology. And the other benefit here is that we can use the same terms and connector search syntax as Westlaw. So if you guys are familiar with using Westlaw and using terms and connectors and search syntax, you can do those same types of searches, which, talking to a lot of the attorneys out there in the marketplace, that's pretty beneficial because they don't have to learn a unique way or a different way to be able to search within this tool. So definitely from a training perspective, that helps out. Document review, when we designed the document review window, we worked with our design partners, which I have the logos down here in the bottom, and we'll talk with that. But we also talked to review attorneys. So Thomson Reuters has a side of their business called Pangea 3, where we do document review services. So we have about 2,000 legal professionals that's all they do is do document review. So they review petabytes of information. And when we started looking at designing the document review window, we touched base with them. And James can kind of expand on this a little bit as we go through the document review technology. But really, we asked them what tools that they're using, talked with them, said, if we can speed up your review, that basically means money from the document review perspective. So when we looked at the tool, we got all this input from them and said what they like and they don't like about the current review technology that's out in the marketplace, and we used that feedback to design the document review window in the process. So I think when you'll see it, you'll see that it's a pretty easy interface, minimal training to use it, very user-friendly, and I think you guys will be really impressed, definitely for the way that we designed it, utilizing all those resources that we had to talk to. Predictive coding. Predictive coding is designed in the program to be very, very easy to use. I know a lot of other technologies out there, you have to have a PhD in statistical analysis or some other PhD to try and run some of these tools, but what we tried to do is use a 5-step predictive coding process. So you'll see that when we go into the technology, it just really walks you through the predictive coding technology in a really easy to use fashion. You can use it really at any stage within the review process. So it's integrated within the technology. There's no pricing associated with it. There's no billing associated with it. It's just built into the technology. So we try to make it as easy to use. It's integrated within the product, so you can definitely use it at different stages within the review process. Production is a technology, again, a lot of production technology out there is very cumbersome. You have to really know what you're doing to be able to run the productions within certain technology. What we did is coming back to that ease of use concept is that we made it really an intuitive 4-step production process. So again, just like predictive coding, we went out to all the different users, talked to them about what they liked and didn't like about production features and different technology, and then we designed in these ease of use steps that we created within our technology. So you can produce out natively, you can produce out in competitor load files, you can produce out in image format, CDSs, all those typical production technologies that you require on a daily basis are built into our production technology. And then the last thing I'd like to talk about real quick is the design partners. So this is a product that we released at Legal Tech, so we've been talking about it for the last couple months. Clients are going to be able to access the program starting March 31st, so we're in what we call a beta release right now. We have 4 design partners that we've been working with for the last year, and again, not only talking to our Pangea 3 review attorneys about what they like and don't like about technology, we've worked with the design partners, so Paul Hastings, Chavez, Munchhart, and then Colstar Latham. We've been working internally with their attorneys and their paralegals and their support staff on what they like and don't like about different technology. And they've been really working with us for quite a while now to help design eDiscovery Point. We also have some beta clients that are out there. So we have a program that we offer to certain people and certain firms that if they wanted to beta the program, and we've had them betaing the program for quite a while as well. So we've been getting feedback from those beta clients on through the development process on what they like and they don't like, and it's really helped the development process. So if you guys are really interested in the program and you wanted to be a beta client, or you actually want to try and get a test of the system, I'm going to share my email address at the end, and you can send me, and we have a process where we can actually give you access to the system after you talk to me and answer a couple questions. So the next slide is about the pricing model, and I think that this is really one of the biggest unique aspects of the program is what we wanted to try and do is make this program extremely easy to understand from a pricing perspective. There's no long list of different add-on prices and stuff like that. Basically, we price the system on how much data you're going to have in the review. What this does is it allows you to be able to plan your review budget, your litigation budget for the entire year. So basically what you do is you'd call us and say, hey, I think that I'm going to have this much information in the system for a year period. We'll give you a price from that perspective. And just for a budgetary perspective, if you think about it, I'll throw out the number that, for a gig price, it's going to be anywhere from $40 to $50 a gig at a high level. So that's basically, really the undiscounted type pricing. So the more, of course, the more information that goes into the system, then that pricing will go down. So you'll just basically talk to the sales representative and say, for the year period, I think I'm going to have this much information into the system. That'll dictate what the pricing is going to be, and then that's your price for the year period. So everything involved in that price over here on the left-hand side is all your uploading and your processing, so there's no additional charges. Like I said, you can upload and process as much data as you want. You can use the early data assessment technology to cull that data down. And then once you pass information over into the review, then that's where that chargeable instance comes up. There's no user licenses, so you don't have to pay a per license fee. So if you want 20 users, 50 users, 100 users, that comes with that base price that I was talking about. All the predictive coding comes with the program. Production, there's no charging for production. Hosting fees are all built into that, so you're not going to get any additional charges from a hosting fee perspective. You also get a dedicated case manager, and I point this out because it's pretty important. There's a lot of solutions on the marketplace that offer what they call a dedicated case manager, and I've seen those over the last, like I said, 10 years in the industry. And what happens in a lot of those situations is the company might come into some kind of financial situation, or they change their model, from year to year, and then you typically lose that dedicated case manager. And that's one of the benefits of working with Thomson Reuters is the financial stability that the company has. The case manager profiles that we have are on our product page, and again, when I send you some information after the session, it'll give you a link to the product page, and you can go out there and look at the case manager profiles. They're all ACEDS certified. They have really good backgrounds, and once you're assigned that dedicated case manager, that's your manager for the existence of your subscription. So you'll always be working with that person. Physical media handling, again, that's all basically as part of the subscription model. So there's no additional cost if you guys want to send us in your physical media. And then technical support and training, that's all basically part of the subscription as well. So that is all that you get for the one simplified price. There are some additional services that you might want to look at. So like I mentioned, we have document review services to our Pangea 3 group. So if you ever have a need for document review services, then that would be an additional service that you could come in and request. Technical managed services, this would be anything that's kind of outside the box. So, like I said, physical media handling, if you send that to us, then we'll upload and process that data for you. But if it's something kind of outside of that, like maybe it's a load file that you need help with, so if there's something where the case managers have to get involved and dedicate time to something that's kind of outside the box, a little outside of the ordinary scope of business, then we can engage the technical managed services team and then that would be a per hour charge. And we can talk about that if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about that. You can email me and I can give you the pricing for that. So how it works is, from the pricing model perspective, is, like I said, let's say that you're uploading about 100 gigs of data. Once you take that 100 gigs and you process it, of course, you're going to be denesting the data. You're going to be exploding container files, so that could, increase the size right there. You can extract text and metadata fields, and then you're going to do your deduping. So through that processing stage, information can be, taken away from the 100 gigs. Certain information, by exploding the container file, can increase your size. You'll get to a set of data that's been processed. Then, like I said, you have access to the data assessment technology, where you can go in there and you can search and you can filter by field, source path, by TST, all that technology that you guys are used to from the early data assessment, and then you can cull that data down. So let's say, for an example, you go from 100 gigs through the process, and then finally you're moving over 20 gigs to the review stage. The 20 gigs is what you're being charged for as part of that subscription price. So like I said, we're trying to keep that pricing model extremely easy. It gives you guys the ability to be able to plan. So if it's a year subscription, you'll be able to plan what your cost is for that entire year. If you want to do a multi-year, then again, that's going to be that fixed pricing. So it gives you the capability to be able to plan from a multi-year perspective as well. So again, here's my email address. If you want to send me an email if you have any specific questions about pricing, if you want to get a demonstration, if you just want to talk about the technology, anything that you really want to talk about, just go ahead and email me at keith.schroth@tr.com. You'll be getting a copy of these slides, and then, of course, we'll be sending an email after the fact, and it'll give you the eDiscovery Point brochure, some links that I want you guys to go out to, the brochure that talks about the data center. So hopefully that package will answer most of the questions. And with that, let's go ahead and transition over to James, and he's going to spend the remainder of the time actually talking about the eDiscovery Point product, and then walking you through some of those value propositions that went over on the slide deck.
Okay, thanks, Keith. If you could just confirm that you can see the sign-in screen for me, that would be terrific.
Yes, I can.
Okay, thanks very much. And so, as Keith had mentioned, with eDiscovery Point, we have built this application from the ground up, and we're leveraging technology and capabilities that Thomson Reuters has developed in the past where that makes sense, and we're extending those for use where it's applicable to eDiscovery activities. And as we go through the demo today, I'm going to talk about that ease of use, things like speed and accuracy, where we're really focused on trying to make it faster to do core activities, because we want to enable you to save time and money at every step along the way. So in terms of the application, as Keith had mentioned, we're 100% web-based here, so I'm going to sign into the application. Actually, if you're familiar with Thomson Reuters web-based products like Westlaw Next, you will have seen our one-pass sign-in before. You can have this configured for two-factor authentication. If you already have a Thomson Reuters online system, you can use the same password to access the system. There's absolutely nothing for you to install locally. This is going to work on the browser that you already have on your machine. I'm showing you the demo today on a Mac. So I'm just going to sign in here. With the Thomson Reuters infrastructure, whenever we're updating the software, maybe I didn't click the sign in button, there we go. There's no flow through for the user, so we're just going to do that on the back end and seamlessly move you to a different site, because we have redundancy built into the data center. So whenever we're upgrading the back end of the application, that's not felt by the users. So here we are at the sign-in screen, and again, we're really focused on building an application that you can walk up and use. As Keith had mentioned, we're still in a beta phase, so I'm showing you a beta account here. This is a list of the projects that have been set up in this account. Here we're showing 3 data points. This pre-review stage that Keith had mentioned earlier, where the data has been ingested onto the platform and processed and indexed for search. And so you can see in this matter at the top, there's 41,195 documents sitting there in the pre-review state. 8,115 items have been pushed through into the review experience. And actually 74 items have been produced. Just to orient you to the homepage a little bit more, up here you can see a little book icon. You can create reports from here from the matters that you have running. You can add a new case to the system just by clicking the plus symbol. You give the case a name and a matter number, and you're basically off. It's off to the races, and it's somewhat similar to grabbing a file folder from your desk drawer. Once the matter name is in there, basically I'm writing a new case into the product, and as Keith mentioned, there's 3 different ways to get data into the system. You can see I can upload documents directly across the internet. We can use FTP, or you can send the physical media to Thomson Reuters, and our professional technical services team will load the data for you. Now, and Keith had mentioned these recommended data sizes. It's a recommendation, it's not a hard and fast rule, especially when it comes to coming across the web. That is going to really depend on how good your bandwidth is. You might have a super good capability there where 10 gigabytes, you're just going to eat that up. In terms of how straightforward it is to bring data into the system, I'll just illustrate that here. As Keith had mentioned, we've worked very closely both with design partners and with our document review teams to make the system very straightforward and obvious in the way that it works. And so I'm just going to show you how easy it is to bring in some data across the web. And so got just a few files here to show you how straightforward it is to upload and bring the data into the application. So I'm just grabbing a few files there, not very many, but just to illustrate how straightforward it is to bring the data into the system. And so what we're doing here is we're picking it up from a source location, encrypting the data in transit and at rest, and bringing it onto the Thomson Reuters data centers here in Minnesota. So that's finished. You can see the cases up here, and at various points in time, we'll be able to see the progress of that data upload. Now, for the sake of timing on the demonstration, I'm going to jump into a case that we already have loaded a reasonable amount of data into, and because we're dealing with documents, when you open a case, you're going to see a list of documents load up here momentarily. And so here we see, because we have data in pre-review and review, my default view is the in-review state, and you'll recall that there are 8,115 items in review. It is an endless scroll list, so all 8,115 items are listed here, and any action that we take, filtering or grouping, is going to occur against the whole list. It's not paginated, and the controls don't work against pages. It's basically one list, one big pile of 8,000 documents that you're always going to be working against that whole collection, what's in review or what's in pre-review. Now perhaps when you first bring data into pre-review, I'm just going to toggle over there, and you'll see it's a list of documents. The difference here is in pre-review, we're not looking at any document text. This is basically a stage in the process where, as Keith had mentioned, we're really wanting to refine and bring the most likely relevant documents into into the review experience. We have some pretty straightforward tools to help you do that. In pre-review, you'll note the 41,195 items. The first tool I'll highlight here that helps you sort of distinguish the wheat from the chaff, so to speak, is our search. And so again, Keith had referenced the Westlaw syntax, so let's use a little bit of that up here with the search. And so what I'm doing here is searching the 41,195 items for anything related to peanut allergies, and you can see, in fact, there are 326 items. I could actually select all of those items and then click here to send them over to the review experience. I could also create an assignment to send them to an individual reviewer on the case. So very straightforward. This is essentially a one-click, but we're giving you a warning, so a two-click action to lift and move that data from the pre-review state into the review state. So search, if you're thinking about key concepts, that's a way to quickly analyze a large set of data and pull across those documents that you want the lawyers and paralegals to take a look at specifically, leaving in pre-review the documents that don't contain those terms. Now, of course, like other applications, we also have keyword technology. You can run that at the point of processing when we're uploading the data. And just to step back and talk about that a little bit more, Keith had mentioned the uploading process also includes traditional processing. So we're culling the files, getting rid of any of the garbage, and basically we're doing things like indexing those documents for search. We basically convert everything to HTML5, and so if we need to, we do OCR over the data, and the reason for that conversion to HTML5 is so you don't have to install anything to look at the documents, and it also enables us to do that comprehensive, very fast search indexing. So as soon as the data lands here in pre-review, I can use the search tool to analyze the data. Now, in addition to search, I'm going to clear that search and back out to the 41,000 items. So again, we're looking at 41,195 items in pre-review. I'm going to cancel that. We have a tool that Keith referred to as data assessment. You just hit the space bar at the top of the screen above the document list, and you can come into our data assessment browse capability. And essentially, this enables you to look at the data by field structure, the fields that we've added as we've processed the data on upload. The fields actually, once the data is in review, you can also use this tool to analyze the data by any metadata or fields that your review team has added, or in conjunction with predictive coding if you have run a predictive coding project against the data. But there are essentially three ways to browse this collection of 41,195 items: by field, by PST, and by source path. So when I click into source path, you can see the folder structure from the destination drive that these files were copied from. In this sample case, one of the things that the review team and the lit support team want to look out for is any reference to Project Cornhusker. They've been told by the attorneys that this is a relevant project team that was involved in the matter. So anytime they see those references, they want to pick up those documents and move them to review. So here you can see a source directory for Cornhusker. I could grab those 116 items and send them to review, or assign them to an individual reviewer who's been put onto the project. Similarly, in the PST view, you get a folder structure view from the custodian's Outlook, if that's how the data was brought into the system. So you can see here for Mr. Farmer, we're looking at his email inbox. Again, here's an example, 95 emails related to the Cornhusker project. I could click on that and send those items to review, or assign them to an individual reviewer. The field mode works exactly the same. You just pick the fields that you want to use to analyze the data. So I can look at custodian. So here's a list of all of the different custodians. I could pick another let's look at file type. And so now I have a view of each custodian and looking at their data by the file type. So Darren Farmer, who we were looking at on the PST view. Now, this is particularly useful based on knowledge that the review team or the lit support team might have. They might be thinking, okay, here we want to look at maybe the CFO and see if there are Excel spreadsheets. We can pick those Excel spreadsheets up and send them over to somebody with financial data experience to review those. So let's say Vimal Dixit is the CFO in this case. We might grab his spreadsheets and have somebody quickly look at those and see if there are early insights into the data. Another way of using this would be in terms of leaving the data in pre-review that's not likely relevant. So let's say we were representing an architecture firm in an employment case. Bringing the custodian files in, there's a high likelihood you would see a large number of CAD files. In an employment issue, wrongful dismissal, in the first instance, it's not likely that those CAD files are going to be relevant to the case. You can leave them in pre-review, not have to worry about any of that data coming into review, not having to slow down the review process. Now, of course, litigation's non-linear. You might learn something in the review experience that says a set of CAD files might be relevant. You can always pop back into pre-review, grab those files, and then assign them to a reviewer. So once the data is brought into the system, and that's something that happens very quickly, it lands here in pre-review, you have our powerful proprietary search technology that enables you to do things like Westlaw syntax to quickly find data that is more likely relevant, send that to review. You also have this browsable technology called data assessment that enables you to quickly assess the data structures to determine if there is data that's more likely relevant and send that into review. When I jump out here to look at the document list, let's jump over to the review experience, and so you'll see I'm going to change from the 41,000 items over to the view of the system that's showing me the data in review, the 8,115 items. Now, I could jump into an assignment. Over here on the action panel, you can see all of the assignments that have been set up. So I have this one called First Pass Assignment, or I can just start directly working with the list. So I could do bulk coding actions here against the list, or I could jump into the very first item in the list, double click the items in the list, or hit on the spacebar at the bottom of the page here. This list, by the way, is completely configurable. You can adjust the width of the columns, the placement of the columns. You can adjust which metadata appears in the columns and in which sequence. But I'm just going to jump into the document review experience to give you a look at that. As I mentioned, all of the data on ingestion and processing is converted to HTML5, which means that we have this one document review experience for you to be able to do the review against all of the content, regardless of whether you're looking at a PDF, a CAD file, an Outlook item, which we've got here on the screen. And just to sort of orientate you to what we're looking at here, this is an individual document. It's in our near-native view of an Outlook file. And you'll notice up here that we've repeated the metadata from the list. And this actually came out of the design collaboration that Keith mentioned with our document review lawyers. They mostly work on two screens. But they said this line of metadata from the list, the item from the list, is helpful to see in the document review pane, particularly when you're coding. So if this was a responsive document, you'll see when I make that change how quickly we've written that coding to the underlying database there. And having the metadata up here just confirms that action for the reviewer. So you'll see up here, if I mark the document as privileged and the subclassification of work product, that detail is added to the list. And the reviewer sees that instant confirmation. Now, likewise, things happen very quickly in this application. We're doing things at scale and speed, so you can see move from one document to the next document. It happens in, that was probably less than a second. Oh, here's an example of a keyword. Probably Anderson was identified as an attorney, so all of the references to Anderson have been marked up as part of that upload and processing, so that the reviewers can automatically be alerted to the instance of that person in the data. Now, beyond the metadata up here and the coding panel over here, which is totally configurable, by the way, we have lots of controls. So we can do search term navigation, we can do keyword navigation here, you can navigate through the documents based on appearance of redactions or notes. We also have pop out, pop in functionality. If we were looking at the experience on two monitors, we can have that completely synchronized experience of clicking through the items on a list and looking at the documents in the coding panel on the adjacent screen. You'll notice here we have a control called area. If you like to draw boxes on documents, you can do that. However, as lawyers and users of modern technology, we also like the idea of just being able to use your mouse to select or your trackpad to select text. And you'll see when I stop my text selection on the document, I can add a note. If you're familiar with Westlaw Next, you'll be familiar with that functionality. Or I could add a redaction. And so you can see how quickly that was written and saved to the database, and also how the redacted text is still visible to the review team. We made this design decision through various iterations of the document review experience. This basically enables anyone working on the document review to see what has been redacted by that first line reviewer, and then they can also click into it and make a change. Maybe I'd also agreed that if I saw something on a particular issue, I would identify that as a green note with the strategic reviewer. So super fast to add notes and redactions to the documents that we're reviewing. We can also add tags to the items very quickly, and you can see that misrepresentation tag has been used before. Now, again, moving through the documents, I can do that at speed. Down here, we have lots of ways to adjust the way that the document is being displayed. So if I wanted to look at a larger view of the document, I could just slide this along. And actually here, is an interesting term, anaphylaxis. Maybe in the setup of the matter, we were looking for things related to peanut allergy, and then in the review, we discover this additional term. I'm just going to jump out of the document review experience and show you how we can use our data assessment, or actually let's use the search. So I'm going to jump back to pre-review. So now I'm in the pre-review stage. These are documents that have been indexed, they've been processed, they're sitting in pre-review. I could run a search here, and I can't remember exactly how to spell that, so I'm just going to use that abbreviation there, and we'll use the and I'm going to run that search. And so here in a couple of seconds, I've analyzed the 41,000 items, and I've discovered that there are 177 items in here that relate to anaphylaxis. I could simply select all of those items based on that recent learning on the matter and send those over to review or assign them to a reviewer. Again, what we're trying to do is enable these tools to work across the entire workflow that you have in eDiscovery and make them very fast and intuitive and easy to use, so that as you learn things along the way, you can adjust your document review and keep moving forward very quickly and cost effectively. So at this point, I think I've shown you the pre-review experience, the document review experience, a couple of things we haven't looked at yet. Maybe production. We go in here, you can see that 2 productions have been run against this case already by Steve. We click into one of these, we can take a look at what that looks like. And so you have a preview of the settings that Steve had set up when he created this production. And it's straightforward to access the production that's already been run. So over here, I can just click in and look at the files. So here are the items that Steve has produced already, and you'll notice if I click on one of these, it's immediately downloaded and accessible to me right here. It's been zipped up, and I can tap into that and open it up. And so here you can see the Bates number there on the produced document. But I'm going to close out of that. Coming back to the details of the production that we ran, you'll notice that over here we can click to produce more or review what has been done. Now, if there were errors on the production, they'd be listed here, and you'd be able to jump to a summary of those errors and take a look at the files and the reason for the errors. Coming back out to the production list, if I wanted to run a new production, very straightforward, just click the plus symbol there, and you can see there are a few different ways to bring data into the production experience. And you can see somebody has set up a search there called Going Nuts. You could bring across all of the data that's in review. If templates have been set up, so maybe Keith as a strategic reviewer knows that I love doing productions, he could set up a template for me, which we haven't done on this matter, but it's very straightforward to do that. You'll notice the default settings here. I can click in, and then there's just a step through menu here to enable me to modify the production settings. And when I do that, I come to the end here, I can actually review those and save this as a template for future use if that's what I want to do. So that's a very quick look at the production experience, and again, we're trying to make it very straightforward, remove the complexities from interacting with the technology, a few simple clicks to save and run a production against the data that you've selected to share out of the system. I'm just going to cancel out of that. Now, as Keith had alluded to, we also include basically all of these capabilities and the use of these capabilities, the unlimited use of these capabilities based on the data that you have in review. So we have a predictive coding capability. There's no incremental charge for that capability. Productions, the split between review and pre-review, the tools like the search and the data assessment, no incremental pricing based on any of these. Actually, just to give you a quick look at the predictive coding experience, let's jump into this one. We want to be able to do predictive coding in just 5 simple steps, and so somewhat similar to the layout of the production interface, we have the steps listed down on the left-hand side, and you can basically walk through the activities related to the 5 steps, setting up and naming the project. And so here you can see this project that's already been run. We wanted to train the engine to look for responsive documents. You go through the document selection, so essentially determine whether you want to analyze all of the data in the case or a subset of the data. Then it's about selecting the control set to enable the engine training. Everybody familiar with predictive coding will know that this is really the gold data set, which basically teaches the engine how to look for the data. Now, in addition to statistical, we have a smart sampling capability. Those of you familiar with content analysts will know about smart sampling. Essentially, it's looking across the data set and creating clusters based on concepts and then pulling sample documents from those clusters. So there's a few different ways for you to generate your samples. Once you have done that and the engine has started to go against your sample sets, you can look at your results and then make adjustments and go through and rerun the training. And then, of course, once you're happy with the performance of the engine, you can have it run against all of the documents in the project and then save and synchronize those documents with review. Now, when you do that, you're able to look at any of the metadata, the fielding that the predictive coding engine does by using our data assessment tool. So those values are added to the data assessment tool, and that enables you to analyze and sort and organize the data that's in review based on the fields that have been added by the predictive coding engine. So that's a very, very high level look at predictive coding. We might see if at some point we can do a deeper dive on that functionality with you. And that's a very high level overview of eDiscovery Point as it exists today in our beta. Keith, Jason, I don't know if there are any questions at this point. I'm going to take a moment to collect my breath.
Yeah, thanks. I'll give you a minute to collect yourself. There's a couple questions. They're sort of in two main categories, as you might guess. There's several questions around pricing, and I can throw those together. There's also a couple of search questions. The first one, search related, is when you send a search result to review, does it take the family docs with them?
Yes, it does. So we have the grouping capabilities are baked into the application, and it's going to take those family items across to the review experience.
And in your second search of pre-review, will it return items you already have in review?
That's a great question, actually, because the results you see on the document list are going to be related to where you are in the application. So when you run the search looking at a list of documents in pre-review, you're going to see the results identified from that pre-review set. If you then toggle across into the review experience without clearing the search, we're going to load the document list up with the hits based on that search that you've run. So essentially, behind the scenes, we always search everything, and then just to give you the appropriate context as the user in the matter, based on where you are, you see the results either in pre-review or in review.
Okay, and the questions are coming fast and furious now. So, in addition to two-factor authentication, is adaptive authentication used?
I'm not familiar with that term. That's something I could follow up with the technology guys to get you an answer on, and we could have a response come from Keith.
Great. Yeah, maybe we can get the email for that question. Are there any input formats not supported?
We use the Nuix capability for processing, so we're going to support all of the file formats that their processing engine currently supports. If we'll bring in the files into the platform, and if there's an exception based on the processing engine not being able to analyze the data, we'll put that into the exception report so you can see that. You'd still be able to access that data in the application.
Gotcha. And then I got an easy yes or no question for you. Do you have any data centers in Europe?
Thomson Reuters does have data centers in Europe. Those data centers aren't currently configured to run eDiscovery Point.
Is that something that might come in the future? Or?
Yes, it's on the roadmap, and we're working with our partner businesses to identify both the timing of the rollout and then any customizations or modifications or enhancements that we would make for the different European markets.
Okay. And then, as I mentioned, there's a couple pricing-related questions. Are there processing or project management fees?
There
No.
are not.
I like that. No.
Do you have a yearly license? Can you do monthly, or can you do monthly for each case?
Yeah, the pricing models are broken into two different models. So you can do a yearly or multi-yearly subscription, or you can do a case by case. So if you just wanted to have one case in the system, then that's something that you can go monthly with us. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that answers all the main questions I see here. And if there's anything else, is SAS 70 report available? Is that a feat? I'm not sure.
So are you talking about, I'm not sure if we're talking about the certification process. And we have SAS 70 Type 1 certification. We are going through the process of SAS 70 Type 2 certification. With some of the certifications, as the person who asked the question is no doubt familiar, you have to be in the market for certain periods of time. And for SAS 70 Type 2, I believe, we have to have had the product in the market for 6 months before we can obtain that certification. We do have that certification for other products that are built on this platform. The core technology platform has that certification, so that will be forthcoming.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I think that takes us just about to the hour. So from ACEDS, I'd like to say thanks to Thomson Reuters for the presentation today, and thanks to everyone for attending. And that I don't know, Keith, if you have any last words or information for the attendees.
Yeah, like I said, I really appreciate you guys spending an hour with us today. And if you have any specific questions, like I said, on pricing, or if you want to have a full demo, you can always email me. So it's keith.schroep@tr.com, and you can spell my last name on the invite that ACEDS sent over. So
Excellent. Well,
thanks very much.
Thanks,
everybody.
James. And with that, thanks to everyone for attending, and I look forward to seeing you on the next ACEDS webinar.
Thank you.